All right. So my name is Dr. Ed, and I'm just a geek kid who was shown patience from his parents and grace from his grade 7 French teacher. I grew up in the northeast hood of Calgary, next to Pine Ridge, and you don't have to be a Calgarian to know why this community was nicknamed Crime Ridge. Creativity got me out of my slump and led me to my doctorate in computer science and over 15 years in educational technology. So I'm here to give back as a speaker and a diverse decision making coach to innovative school districts and cutting edge organizations. And my goal today is to talk to you a little bit about my story. Um, I'm, I want to tell you this story because it relates to speaking, what I'm doing right now. And I've had some questions from Phil and from others. What is this? Like you're doing live streams about NFTs, like metaverse, like what the heck what are you doing? Please explain. And so I've been asked to explain a little bit about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So I want to tell you a story about creativity. When I was 12 years old, I was a D student falling behind in school. I got thrown into late French immersion, and I got this long history of struggling in school, even to learn English, let alone a brand new language. I had to learn French. When I was in the seventh grade of late French immersion, I felt so far behind that I had no choice but to cheat on my tests. You know, I was doing bad when school was in English, but I was a miserable failure when learning in French. And that's the reason why I felt so behind that I really had no choice but to cheat on my tests. My whole life was going to change the day that Mr. Belanger found out. And he found out. At the parent teacher tribunal, Mr. Belanger had every right to call me out in front of my parents and to suspend me. I mean, we have no tolerance policies today. And I was shocked when he said, I know Ed's struggling, but he's creative. So it's going to be okay. Okay? Seriously? And it was that moment. It was that moment that I realized that creativity didn't only apply to my interests, it applies to every single job that we do. I learned that there are no boring tasks, only boring imaginations. Now, it wasn't easy, but creativity is what motivated me to push through the failures. And I learned that creativity flows when you know your passions, your strengths, and your identity. Because it is your uniqueness and your diversity that our world needs today. Now, if you want to be leading among your peers, if you want to be ahead of the pack, if you want to be someone who is seen as an innovator, somebody who is a creator, you're going to have to do something that no one else is doing. Because from that uniqueness, that is what the world wants and needs from you. So let's talk about speaking and presence, because I think that these are two areas that I'm really passionate about, because these are the ones that are going to have an impact. It's going to allow you to have a huge impact in the world. And I think about like why am I doing what I'm doing? Because I know a lot of incredibly smart, like brilliant people. And in fact, I attended a session with many of the like the just the thought leaders in educational technology. Incredible people. Like these are brilliant individuals who are involved with some of the early creation of logo, some of the people who invented Scratch, and like big projects that are super well known in our field. And some of them, even the ones involved with the one laptop per child (OLPC), which we thought that was totally going to change the world. They discovered that later in their lives that we didn't have the impact that we wanted to have. We didn't have it because politics got involved. So somebody like really took on the idea, but then the next guy who got elected, it didn't happen. And we couldn't play that game and we couldn't succeed that way. And I felt like, wow, I could spend my whole life working in academia and not have an impact, not have the impact that we really wanted. And I felt like that's unfair. That's unfair because we were never trained these things. We never like who goes and teaches you how to become a speaker? And so that's what I decided to do. I decided to take a little bit of a journey to learn about this speaking skill. So I've been looking all over for people who can help with speaking, and I didn't want somebody who like just a generic Toastmasters wasn't what I was looking for. I was specifically looking for somebody who could help me explain things from a a racialized perspective. You know, there are a lot of leaders out there, but I do feel that there are not enough like BIPOC, Black, Indigenous people of color that are at the decision making table. And I think it is this lack of diversity at the top, at the decision making table, that is causing a lot of the challenges that we have today. And so, my goal today is to talk to you about that specifically and what I plan to do about it and how I plan to help. Now, I do feel that in a world where everybody is taught reading and writing, this particular skill becomes quite commoditized. And so, in order for you to differentiate and actually to make an income from reading and writing, you really have to be like top 1%. You have to be at the highest level of reading and writing. And it certainly is possible. I know some copywriters who uh, make over $1 million a year from their skill. And this is a very good area. If you want to learn like a skill, like copywriting is a type of closing in print, right? And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to convince or they're trying to convert a prospect into somebody who is a fan by through their writing. And a lot of it is the emotional type of writing, the one that really like pulls at the heartstrings, the ones that really get deep into the needs. And so, of course, there needs to be market research. There needs to be a strong understanding of who your audience is. And I think that that's very powerful, but not as powerful as speaking. And the reason I say that is because many of the like, yes, there are great copywriters, but the great copywriters often help the great speakers. And I felt like if you really wanted to have an impact on policy, you want to move towards some type of positive change, you better be good at speaking. And so I decided to spend some time learning from Sean Rais. And he runs a course known as Speaking Like a Leader. And I've already taken several of his courses, including Branded Like a Leader. So it talks about the fundamentals of branding. And I also took his course, Coaching Like a Leader. So to become a certified coach, he has a number of books that we read and a number of courses that we take. And I found that that information was very helpful to understand the frameworks and mindsets that individuals have. And it was in coaching like a leader that I really started to discover this is what I want to do. I want to help with coaching. One of the examples in one of the books that he recommended, and we had to read, I think, 3 or 4 books in this course, was that oftentimes you will see leaders, very strong leaders at the top of an organization who lead their entire organization, it could be even a country, um, into a lot of trouble, and they get ousted. And the reason for this seems to be very consistent. That is, you have a strong leader who does a great job leading through a time of crisis. Could be the beginning of the starting of that company. It could be a like a political crisis, or it could be a military crisis. They're really strong leaders in that time because you really need somebody who can come in and make decisions quickly and take control. They don't have to be the right decisions, but they have to be some decision. But those same leaders become toxic and they become the kinds of leaders that will shoot the messenger when they hear bad news. And this is where the failure comes, is that they just stop listening. They stop listening to the bad news stops coming to them. And then as a result, what happens? What happens is they steer the ship in a direction towards disaster. And it was this realization that no, it is that diversity at the decision making table that determines whether or not you're going to make those mistakes. It wasn't because oh that individual, no, it was their structure of their leadership, the structure of the decision making table, that determined that. And at the beginning of this video, I just talked a little bit about my own story and this discovery that creativity applies to everything. And really, it's just about like I've done some courses on creativity where they just talk about diverse ideas and connecting them together. That's really the skill. It's like it's not that you're coming up with a brand new idea that has never been thought of before, but you're trying to take a little bit of this piece and a little bit of that piece from another person and this idea from another person. And you're trying to put all of those things together into one new idea, one new direction that no one else has thought about. And so that is something that I see as the key behind what I'm trying to do. Yes, I get involved with computing. Yes, I talk about like the technical side of things, but I speak about it from the perspective of creativity. I ask, okay, so what does this mean? This is just another tool in your toolbox. Everything here, all of my equipment are all just tools for creativity. What can you do with it? What will you be able to do if I took this piece and I took this other piece together and I combine them together? Like, what would you be able to do that you have not been able to do before? And so I want to talk to you a little bit about this notion of presence because it is something that I have spoken about before from a technical perspective, but I need to dive into it a little bit more from a speaking perspective. So I'm taking speaking like a leader and I'm taking presence and I'm merging them together. Another creative example. So the purpose of presence in any video system, any video conference, is to recreate the face to face experience. Like you want to have the experience of me speaking directly to you. And we have to do all of these types of compensations with our technology in order for us to make it feel like we are having a face to face connection. So there are several things. There's your eye gaze. Where are you looking at? Are you looking here? Like, are you looking at the side? Like, do you feel like I'm having a real conversation with you if I'm looking at? No, of course not. Presence, like being able to look directly in the camera. How do I do that? I have to have like a, what do they call it? Like a teleprompter mirror, so I can actually see an image of myself, or I can see like some text or something while I'm looking directly at the camera. People are like, "Wow, you did such a good job. You're looking at the camera the whole time." I'm like, "Yeah, I had my script right there. I was looking at it right at the teleprompter." But I think that's important. You want to have the face to face type of connection. And in a face to face situation, you're looking at each other, right? The gaze is really important. The other is the audio. What do you hear? And the problem with microphones is that they are not as good. They're terrible compared to the human ear. The human ear is incredible. We can hear like the softest sounds from a room away, and everything sounds great. Like we have clarity about what people said. But we don't computers don't have that. Microphones don't have that. Microphones are really restricted. Most microphones, they work about an inch away. That's it. Like if you are not an inch away from the mic, it's not even going to work. So really, the objective of audio is to make it sound closer, right? Like because the louder the audio is, the louder the volume of the audio, the closer we feel together. And so we want to recreate that presence that we are close together. And so, for myself, if you look at my own equipment, and I have a video on the whole technical setup, so I'm not going to dive into that too much today. If you want to learn a little bit more about the technical setup, I'd encourage you just go to aiparenting.live. I have a course called Video Funnel Secrets. And this is really like it gives you the whole technical breakdown and exactly like how it's done. So you just go to aiparenting.live and you'll be able to see it there. And of course, like I have other things like the email list as well. If you want to get some news updates about, hey, when am I going to do my next live stream? What is this all about? What are the next opportunities that are going to be available with respect to speaking and also coaching as well? Then this is a good opportunity to visit the site. So, in terms of microphones, myself, I use a AKG C414. It's a large diaphragm microphone, and I use it because it has a really good um, it has a really good signal to noise, and that's really what we're talking about here. We want to have strong signal relative to the background noise, but it's not good enough. Actually, in fact, like for myself, I do other things in my audio setup to remove any hum or noise from the microphone. I do other things to change the treble and the bass a little bit to make it sound a little bit more like a podcaster. If you've ever seen the Rodecaster Pro, it has something called the Aphex, Aphex, which is something that adjusts the sound of the highs and the sounds of the lows so it becomes more clear to somebody who is listening audio only. And so I wanted that type of sound so it felt like you were much, much closer to the individual than normally you would be. And so it's something that differentiates me from, I guess, the from others in that I care about the technical side. And then the last is about our vision, our eyes. And I think that this is where a lot of people, um, like our eyes have this incredible ability to see in very low light. Like you can have no lights on and we can still see a little bit because of the rods and the cones that we have. However, if you're talking about a camera, like a digital camera or a digital video, these cameras are extremely limited compared to human vision, and they require a lot more light than a typical setup. And so, like, you've been doing Zoom for ages and you still see people like in completely in the dark. And why is that? Because they can't handle the differences between a very light background. Like, let's say you have a window behind you and the person, like seeing the person directly. And so the person gets all blacked out, like you can't see their face. And then the background is all like, oh, all you see is the brightness of the window. So what's the solution for that? Just move away from the window. Install some lights. Like for example, I use some LED lights that are in a like box lights that are able to light up different sides of my face, and also to light up the background as well, so that it has a more uniform color if I'm going to do something like a green screen. And so being able to focus the attention is something that I focus on as well. Because I feel that in the end, speaking is a performance. And you want to do all of the things that someone does in a performance. You don't want to have to be holding a script. You don't want to have to be looking down all the time if you can avoid it. For some people, you could just speak for like half an hour, no problem, right? Just on any topic. Some people need a few prompts, like here's the one, two, three things that I'm going to be talking about, and that's okay. I think the key is that we're doing it because we want to give back, right? We're doing it because we feel that we have something to contribute that we don't hear anybody else talking about. There is one other aspect that I do want to talk to you about, and that is this notion of your camera and your view. Your framing is extremely important, right? So, for example, like a lot of people have their cameras set up like this, and you can barely see them. I can see like maybe the tops of their heads. And what does that mean? So, your framing is something that I hadn't talked about before, but framing in video is extremely important because it actually sends a very different message. And I've been trying to relearn some of the things that I had learned before about cinematography, and I wanted to see how does cinematography apply to the video environment, and that's what I want to talk to you a little bit more about today. And the reason is maybe this will give you a set. So there is a series online that talks about different shots and different shot sizes. And the way that you frame your shot really determines how people perceive what you will see. So let's see if I can get you, if I can bring this up. They essentially the shot itself determines the rhythm of the scene. And so I won't cover all of it. I just want to cover some aspects of it. Okay. And yeah, if you want, like, you can pull up the shot list as well on YouTube. You can take a look at some of their videos, but a lot of those shots have like the way that they've been approaching the shot list has been very helpful for me in understanding the different types of shots. And I don't want to go through all of the shots, maybe just a few of them. Um, I'm going to get to close up. Yes. Okay, here. Okay, here, and hopefully this works.
Or comment on a subject's relationship to their environment. In this wide shot from Phantom Thread, we can see the characters Alma and Reynolds dwarfed by a messy ballroom. Paul Thomas Anderson could have ended the scene with close-ups to capture their characters' emotions. But by ending with a wide shot here, we can consider Alma and Reynolds together, yet isolated from the world around them. Use it when you need to establish depth subject. Full shot. When a subject's entire body reaches from the top to the bottom edges of the frame, the shot is defined as full. With a full shot, it's not necessary to put the subject in the center of the frame, but notice how often this is the case. This example is effective because it is tight enough to tell a story with the character's face, but wide enough to further the story by observing her entire body, posture, and wardrobe. So remember, a full is composed head to toe, and you can use them when you need to make statements about a subject's physicality and present a character in all their glory. Moving on. Medium full shot, Cowboy. The medium full shot is arranged from the top of the subject's head to just below their waist. It is sometimes referred to as a cowboy shot based on the height of gun holsters. Here we can see complementary angles from The Favorite, composed in medium fulls. The cowboy angle on the character Lady Sarah is particularly strong and confrontational. This isn't a Western and features no holsters, but it's hard not to think of cowboys when firearms are deployed like this. Use it when you need to present a subject as confident, dangerous, or confrontational, especially when weapons might be drawn. Moving on. Medium shot, MS. Perhaps the most popular shot size in all of cinema is the medium shot. But why? Because it's more of a neutral shot, neither dramatic like a close-up or distancing like a wide shot. It captures the subject in a size similar to how we interact with people.
Will you hold still?
The typical composition of a medium shot starts above the waist but below the chest and ends just above the head. Shot sizes deployed in animated films function under the same compositional rules.
Oh! Hello.
Let's look at an example to better illustrate this. In this scene from Coco, Miguel watches a film starring his idol. The medium shot composition accommodates quite a bit. The props from Miguel's shrine, the detail on the TV screen, and Miguel's reactions to it. It's an intimate moment as we observe Miguel's joy, along with the objects of his affection in a single frame.
Follow my heart. You know that feeling? Like this.
So remember, the typical composition of a medium shot starts above the waist, but below the chest, and ends just above the head. Use it when you need to dig into a subject's eyes without losing their physicality or environment, or utilize a true middle ground approach that is neither jarring nor especially dramatic. Our next subject, medium close-up shot, MCU. When a shot frames a subject from mid-chest to just above their head, it is referred to as a medium close-up. Medium close-ups are about reducing distraction and prioritizing story and character details.
Why don't you start right now and get the fuck out of here?
Use it when you need to get intimate with a subject without losing their physicality.
Perhaps I treated you too harshly.
Here, the villainous Thanos snaps his fingers during the climactic moments of Avengers Endgame. With this shot size, we have room for the Infinity Gauntlet, and Thanos' look of cruel satisfaction in thinking he has won. But when he fails, this medium close-up is designed to also capture his reaction. Remember, a medium close-up is roughly head to chest. Are you ready for it? It's the close-up. See you.
Here's Johnny!
Of course, the most powerful visual weapon for highlighting a change in emotion or dramatic beat on screen. Close-ups are most often arranged at eye level, better to dig into the windows of a soul. In this shot size, we have a front row seat for a character's thoughts and feelings.
Who is it?
Will you help me?
Yes, anything.
The close-up is about empathy and illustrates how dramatically effective it can be in a time of decision or anxiety. Our final category: Extreme Close-Up Shot, ECU. An extreme close-up, or ECU, frames a subject to isolate a specific area. This could be lips, ears, or nose, but the eyes are typically the focus. Like here in Kill Bill Volume 1. As the bride is swarmed by the crazy 88, we cut back and forth between their entry points and her frantic eyes. But when the function of a specific prop or an intimate detail is necessary, filmmakers will often rely on the insert shot.
Okay. So from that, I hope that clarified a little bit of the different types of shots. So we saw the medium shot from head to toe body, head to side, right? And so we also talked about the cowboy shot, and they talked about the close up and then the extreme close up when you only are able to see the face. And so the typical use for most videos, like when you're doing a presentation, is probably going to be medium close up, like around what you see here. I expect that like you want to be able to zoom in and you want to be able to control that. And so that's something that I've been experimenting with as well. Like, how could I switch the position? How could I have different views depending on what we want? And so it's taken me a little while to figure this out, but I'm going to show you an example of this. So I'm using something called an ATEM Mini Pro. And what it has is something that is quite neat. It has a number of different layers that you can do. So think of it like a hardware version of OBS. And what it can do is, and if you don't know what OBS is, it's Open Broadcast Studio. So you can take the layers and you can animate them in hardware without having to consume more computing power and making your stream slow. So with this, I can take my video and I can shrink it like I'm zooming out. So I can do like a zoom out and a zoom in type of transition. So I'll show you. So I'm starting a zoom out transition now. And so you can see like I'm becoming like smaller and smaller in the frame. I'm going from 1.2 size crop to about 0.8. So about 40% different. You can see like, okay, there's a different feel to the image here. And if I want to return, if I want to come back to you, I can also push that same button, and then now you can see my smoothly zooming in. And so I'm hoping to combine this with some videos as well, or maybe some images that I zoom in and out of to give you that same type of feel. So that's something that that's something that I'm going to be diving into a little bit more in the future. Cinematography. What we are doing here in live video, if you are wanting to become a speaker, is a type of, you have to think of it from a cinematography perspective. Can't be thinking, oh, I'm just going to throw up a webcam. I'm going to no, you have to treat it like this is your stage. What are you doing about your stage in order to make sure that you give your audience the best experience possible? And I think that if you are pretty serious about this stuff, then it's worth investing in. It's worth knowing, well, what are the different things that I need to add? So I just mentioned a few of them. And I can see that some of the chat is blowing up. So of course, if you guys have questions, I'm going to take a few of your questions before I have to run today. So one of the questions I had was, why do I look like Michael Jackson? Man, that is such such an honor. I wish I actually did look like Michael Jackson. my kids love his videos, his dance move. I keep saying that he's the goat. There's nobody who is like him. Like that can be as good as you can get. um, uh, Isaiah asks, "What is your kind?" I've never seen it before. What is your kind? You may have to expand on what that means, Isaiah. I'm not sure what you mean by your kind. If you want to know, a little bit about my background, which is what I talked about today, I said that I grew up in the northeast side of Calgary. My parents are from Hong Kong and China. They came to Toronto in Canada to study, and then they moved over to Calgary for work. And that's where I was born. I grew up in the Northeast Hood, and in that area, there were a lot of other Chinese students. But I never really fit in with any of them. I never got into any cliques. Part of the reason was because I was always an outsider. That is, I didn't grow up in Hong Kong and then move over to Canada. No, I grew up in Calgary. I was born a Calgarian. I will die a Calgarian. But my experience is very different from most people. And as a result, like later, my family moved to the southwest of Calgary, where I was one of two Asian students in the entire school. And if I felt like an outsider before, I felt like really an outsider at that time. And some of you don't know my story. Some of you don't know the kinds of things that I've gone through, but you know, I don't know if this was a normal experience for others, but for me, like in gym class, having other people like hit you with like gym equipment was kind of a regular occurrence for me. People picking fights with you, even though you hadn't done anything, that just because they didn't like you, that was my normal. That was my normal experience, and so a lot of it was an experience of um, isolation, like one of being outside all the time. And so it took me a long time to discover who I was and what I wanted to do. And so um, this is something that, has been, I've been wanting to talk about for some time, is that, to know what the experience like of an Asian Canadian was in Calgary, 1980s, is to know the experience of being hated by everyone. And now I live in the northwest of Calgary, and it's not like things have changed all that much. I mean, maybe for some people, it's becoming more public. It's becoming more aware of what is happening in terms of things like racism. But this is something that I still talk about, and I still struggle with today. And so there are reasons why I want to do this type of work and why I feel that this work is important, especially in the technology field as well. Because all of the things that you see happening in your society is happening online. But because you're not as familiar with the algorithms and the artificial intelligence that makes decisions on a lot of what you see and what you spend your attention on, we don't see the direct impacts of these things, but they're huge. And in this society where you don't get to choose who the CEO of Facebook is, you don't get to choose who the CEO of Twitter is, or you don't get to choose who the CEO of Google is. Really, the only recourse that you have as a digital citizen is your data. Your data is your vote, and it is your knowledge of AI and your knowledge of algorithms like programming that is the new law. And the more that you know these things, the more that you're going to be at an advantage as a speaker, as an influencer, as someone who is just looking to have a positive impact on change. And this is not just in the workplace; it's not only in the this in schools and in school districts, but it's in our broader society as a whole. A lot of speakers and marketers recommend like just avoid politics altogether. Don't talk about politics. Don't talk because people are gonna like some people are not gonna like it. Some people are gonna like it, but politics is everything. It's all over the place. Like there is politics in the AI algorithms that determine what you're going to see online. Like how many of you are actually going to see this feed? It's all politically decided, right? Somebody at some decision making table has made that decision that we're going to prioritize certain types of content, hateful content, stuff that causes more engagement, stuff that causes more watch time. These high level decisions are being made and they are having broad implications across our society. People are like sick and tired of cancel culture. Well, cancel culture is just like using the same tools, like essentially all it is just using the same tools of technology, which is like outrage. Like these are like outrage accelerators, and just using that against the companies instead of the companies using it to like generate a lot of good news about them. We know that good news doesn't travel very quickly online. It's the bad news that travels quickly, and so it's just using the same techniques and strategies against them. So question from Isaiah was, have I seen the Outer Space movie from 1992? Oh man, I'm an 80s baby. And I'm sure like if there was an Outer Space movie in 1992, I definitely would have seen it. And to me, a lot of my inspiration comes from science fiction. And I remember even during my PhD, like I talked about this creative arc, right? Like that went from, being a struggling student all the way to getting my doctorate. Like what was it? It was essentially trying to recreate like aspects of Star Trek. You know how they have like the voice interface and then they have all those touch screens. That's basically what I tried to do for my PhD. I used some voice recognition software. I combined it with gestures on touch tables, and that was the topic of my PhD. And this was 2003, so 4 or 5 years before iPhone. And so we were early work, right? Like I even got to be an expert witness on the Apple and Samsung lawsuits. Who remembers those? Because my work was considered like, wow, it was out there. And in fact, it became one of the first early viral videos on YouTube. We made it to the front page of YouTube. And at the time, I had no idea what that meant. We made it to the front page of Reddit, and I didn't even know what Reddit was at the time. I was like, what is going on? Why am I getting all these messages? And people like who were in the gaming community were reaching out to me and they're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I do like tournaments for like Warcraft. And, I think that this kind of technology would be so useful because I basically created a voice and gesture interface over Warcraft, the game, the real-time strategy game. And so it was interesting. It was just like trying to take what was implicit, like we typing on a computer or moving a mouse, and trying to make it explicit, because it is not just a command to the computer, but it is also communication to other people as well. And we don't think about the things that we do as communication to others enough today. Everything we do is communication. Everything is like presenting yourself to others. And so I want to help give you the best opportunity to show that type of presence, that I'm there. Like I'm here to give back, and make it very clear, what can you give to others? What kind of value can you provide to other organizations or to other influencers? And so that's kind of my approach. Is I feel like I have something to give here, because this is what I do. This is what I love. And a lot of the people in my field are happy to to be developers. Um, some actually do presentations on a regular basis as academics, which is wonderful. It's not easy. And so this is how I choose to present. Is I want to share information with you. I'm learning stuff all the time, and in fact, like the story that I shared with you is part of the course with Sean Rais. His his course is really interesting because it gets you to really craft your own story. And so while I'm listening, I'm like kind of writing out my own story and thinking about it a little bit as well. And so I'm really glad that you asked that, Isaiah. And so for anybody who is joining us, please pop a comment in the chat. Just let us know, hey, was this helpful for you? Did you learn something today? If you found it useful, make sure that you subscribe to updates on this. And if you want to learn more, if you're ready to go, like I want to be able to serve you to a higher degree than I'm able to do in like a brief live stream. So if you want to be, if you want to move this further to the next level, I'd suggest go to aiparenting.live. Sign up for our email list. It's a really simple thing. It's free. And you'll get some of our latest updates about what we're doing in this world of trying to improve our ability to communicate, speaking, and presence. With that, I want to say thank you to everyone who's been joining. I see some people who joined at the beginning and they've been there since the end. Some on Twitch, some on Amazon. I really do appreciate this. These are the kinds of things that we want to be able to grow. We want to be able to do more. My plan with cinematography is we've only scratched like the bare minimum of the surface. There's a lot that we can do. There's a lot that we will be exploring, and a lot that we will be doing in these live streams that I don't think you've ever seen before, because nobody's ever made them. Nobody's ever maybe thought of them the way that I see them. And so I see them as, think about the emotional effect of your framing. Think of the emotional effect of how the camera moves and use that in your presentations. Because when you hone in on those emotions, you will be able to change the world. You'll be able to change your organization. You will be able to change other people, their perspectives. You will be able to impact the world. And that's what we want. We want a positive impact on the world. So thank you very much. I will see you all next time.